Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the Podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. Following this day in history, we will move on to talking about cannibalism, maybe the most universal taboo in human culture. It is also one of the oldest, most persistent, and most misunderstood aspects of human history. It has appeared in every era, on every continent, and in almost every type of society, from prehistoric caves to royal courts, from ritual altars to lifeboats adrift at sea. It has been used as a weapon of terror, a tool of survival, a religious act, a medical prescription, and at times, a political accusation. We will finish up with the history brief, which comes today from Strange History, published by the Portable Press in 2019. A quick word from our sponsors. This day in history. On January 4th, 1643, Sir Isaac Newton was born in Lincolnshire, England. His insights into gravity, motion, optics, and mathematics laid the foundations of modern physics. On January 4th, 1896, Utah became the 45th U.S. state, ending a nearly half-century struggle for admission. Story of the day. The earliest evidence of human cannibalism predates civilization itself. Archaeologists have found Neanderthal bones some more than 100,000 years old, with cut marks made by stone tools, marrow extraction, and skulls cracked open for the brain. The fattiest and most energy-dense part of the body, I should mention. Whether this cannibalism was done for survival, ceremony, or warfare, well, that is still debated. But the evidence is undeniable. Long before humans built temples or kingdoms, they were sometimes eating one another. Early Homo sapiens did it too. At the Gog's Cave in England, dated to around 15,000 years ago, excavators found human bones treated exactly like butchered deer and horses, scraped, burned, split, and discarded. But they also found skulls carefully shaped into bowls, suggesting that cannibalism here was not just about hunger, but ritual. In some prehistoric societies, eating human flesh appears to have been part of grief, remembrance, or spiritual transformation. The logic was not gruesome, it was spiritual. To consume a body was to keep its power, memory, or essence alive. That idea, that meaning can be transferred through flesh, reappears again and again throughout history. In Mesoamerica, among the Aztecs, captured warriors were sometimes sacrificed and ritually consumed, not out of sadistic urge, but as part of cosmology, in which blood and flesh fed the gods who sustained the universe. Among the Maori of New Zealand, cannibalism during war was about dominance, humiliation, and the absorption of mana, spiritual authority. In Fiji, long known as the Cannibal Isles in Western travel writing, missionary records show that cannibalism existed, but was deeply structured and not random. Only specific enemies or criminals were eaten, and often as a kind of social verdict, not a hunger response. So cannibalism was ritual power. None of this fits the modern stereotype of desperate, starving people tearing flesh from bodies. In much of the ancient world, cannibalism was selective, ceremonial, and rule-bound. The most extreme taboo in the modern world was, for others, a sacred privilege or a necessary counterweight to violence. If war took life, ritual consumption restored cosmic order. But there's another side of this story as well, a time when cannibalism was neither holy nor triumphant, but actually desperate. In the winter of 1609, the English colony of Jamestown, celebrated today as the first permanent English settlement in America, starved so badly that colonists turned to cannibalism to survive. Archaeological digs at the site have uncovered butcher marks on human bone, including the skull of a 14-year-old girl, her cheeks cut away, her brain removed for consumption. Colonists in their own diaries admitted it. They dug up corpses, they cooked the dead, they even killed to eat. This was not ritual by any means. This was survival. The same is true of the famous, or rather infamous, Donner Party, trapped in the Sierra Nevada in the 1846, who ate the flesh of dead companions after months of snow-blocked isolation. And of the shipwrecked sailors of the Essex in 1820, the whale ship whose sinking later inspired Moby Dick, where lots were drawn in a lifeboat to choose who would be shot and eaten so that the others might live. And most disturbingly, the Franklin expedition of 1845, which sought the Northwest Passage and vanished into the Arctic. When Inuit witnesses later described white men boiling bones for grease and eating pieces of their dead crewmates, Victorian England refused to believe them. Only a century later, when exhumed bodies showed cut marks, did the truth become undeniable. In all these cases, cannibalism was not cultural, it was catastrophic. It was what happens when the boundary between life and death becomes so thin that the taboo collapses and hunger overwhelms terror. Ironically, one society that insisted cannibalism was barbaric was secretly practicing it in its most elite institutions, and that's early modern Europe. Beginning in the Renaissance and continuing into the 18th century, European medicine prescribed powdered mummy, literally ground up Egyptian corpses, as a cure for everything from headaches to internal bleeding. Jars of mumia were sold and believed to contain mystical healing forces. King Charles II of England drank medicine made from human skull. Fresh blood from executed criminals was collected and sold as a rejuvenating tonic. Catholics consumed this symbolic body and blood of Christ in the Eucharist, and Protestant critics accused them of ritual cannibalism. In other words, Europe denounced savages for cannibalism, but at the same time quietly incorporated it into elite medicine and religion. And this kind of brings us to one of the most revealing historical roles cannibalism has ever played, not as an act, but as an accusation. During the Age of Exploration, Europeans frequently described the peoples they encountered as cannibals, not always because it was true, but because the accusation itself justified conquest. When Columbus wrote that the locals ate human flesh, it provided theological permission under Spanish law to enslave them. When British colonizers called First Nations people in Canada man-eaters, it framed colonization as a rescue mission and not as an invasion. Cannibalism in European rhetoric became the ultimate proof that a people were unfit for sovereignty. Whether these accusations were accurate mattered less than the moral power that they carried. Now, don't get me wrong, there were cannibals in all of these instances. It just didn't mean that they were all cannibals. Still, calling someone a cannibal back then meant labeling them subhuman, and therefore conquerable. In this sense, cannibalism shaped history even when it wasn't actually happening. So what makes cannibalism the deepest taboo in the first place? Well, it's not simply because it's so violent. Humans have committed all kinds of violence without turning it into a cultural boundary line. What makes cannibalism unique is that it violates the very thing that makes society possible: the unspoken agreement that humans are not livestock. Eating flesh collapses the social contract. It doesn't just kill it, it erases the very idea of shared humanity. So that's why cannibalism is almost universally banned today. But if you're really looking for answers, I guess one lies not in what cannibalism is, but what it represents. As societies industrialized, reorganized, urbanized, and defined themselves as modern, they needed sharp boundaries against the past. Cannibalism became one of those boundaries. It allowed the West to draw a line between civilization and primitivism. If we draw away the myths, the panic, and the propaganda, the historical record leaves us with something far more revealing. Cannibalism is not an anomaly. It is a recurring part of the human story. Not dominant by any means, not constant, not accepted, but always present at the edges. The History Brief. The following comes from the book Strange History, a 2019 portable press release. Today we concentrate on some quotations from ages past that sound like they could have been said last week. What is happening to our young people? They disrespect elders and disobey their parents. They ignore the law. They riot in the streets inflamed with wild notions. What is to become of them? Plato, 427 to 347 BC. The young people of today think of nothing but themselves. They have no reverence for parents or old age. They are impatient of all restraint. They talk as if they know everything, and what passes for wisdom to us is foolishness to them. As for the girls, they're forward, immodest, and unladylike in speech, behavior, and dress. Peter the Hermit, 1050 to 1115 AD. No job worth doing was ever done on time or under budget. Khufu, Egyptian pharaoh, circa 2560 BC, on building the Great Pyramid. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show a mighty success. Keep on spreading the word. If you need to contact me, you can do so at peter@historyshortspodcast.com. You could also visit www.historyshortspodcast.com or look for the History Shorts Podcast on Facebook, X, and Patreon. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.